These are our traditional glute ham stations. So every gym should have glute hams. Unfortunately, most don't, so you're stuck to doing hamstrings with leg curls, and leg curls just really don't cut it. Other movements like RDLs, deadlifts, they do work the hamstrings, however, they're not quite as specific to the movements of sprinting because of the tie-in with the glutes, the activation in the hamstrings. So really, the best exercise for sprint training is the development with glute hams. Most people don't know, glute hams were originally created by the Soviets, the Soviet gymnastic program. If you can visualize here, this section of the glute ham was a pommel horse, and what they would do is they would take their pommel horse and they would push it next to stall bars so they could stick their feet in them. That's how they did their traditional glute ham training. But to do it correctly, the knees need to be on the pommel horse. If you get too far back, you slide back, which is what you see people do in gyms that actually do have a glute ham, but they're still not doing it correctly. To show you the difference, most people don't have the strength, so when they get up here and their knees are actually on the pads, they'll come down here and they're like, I can't do it, so then they stick their butt up to be able to come up, even if they can't do that. If they can't even do that, they make it easier by moving the lever back so they can go way back here. And so even if I started here, see how my knees are going through. So now I'm pivoting off of my quads, which makes the exercise relatively easy. And people will do repetition after repetition that way, and then they wonder why they still pull hamstrings. So when we push them forward and get into correct position, so that their knees are actually on the pads. Well, I'll just tell you a quick story. Back at the Super Bowl 50 year, I had 3 of the defensive backs of the Broncos here. They were dealing with hamstring issues, and one of the first thing I did was say, let's test your hamstring strength. So they set it up the way I just showed you, and they said, oh, we do these all the time. Then when I put them up here, and they came down here, they went, ugh, and they couldn't do it. It just shows that you can be playing at a very high level of skill and still have a lot of athletic deficiency. Here at Dunamis, we're all about increasing your ability to be an athlete, which then will translate to a higher level on the field. So we use our glute ham machines to work those deficiencies when people don't have the strength to do it correctly. But if we want to use these, that's why I developed this whole rack, so that when we have our athletes here who can't do it, instead of moving them back so it changes the levers and then therefore doesn't transfer, we can now use bands for assistance. So we can come in here. When I'm down here where the exercise is the hardest, the band's giving me the most amount of help. But as I come up, notice the band's not helping me at all, so it's a better curve. It actually works really well with glute hams. So now we can get in the volume. I can keep those glutes activated the entire time, eventually to get to the point where I can, oh, there we go, do it correctly without actually breaking at the hip.